Hi, I'm Brian Hagan, Managing Director of the Decision Empowerment Institute, and I'd like to share with you the story of our company and why it's time to integrate generative AI models with pro analytics to create a revolutionary new standard for corporate decision making. For over 40 years, decision theory and practice and computer science and artificial intelligence have been maturing on two largely independent tracks. Our story begins with Daniel Kahneman's and Amos Tversky's 1979 seminal publication, Prospect Theory, an analysis of decision under risk. The paper establishes the foundation of a descriptive theory of decision-making, that is, how we think about and make decisions, and the numerous cognitive biases and cognitive errors that sidetrack us from making good decisions. Prospect theory represents the emergence of behavioral economics, underscoring our innate aversion to loss. The key takeaway: we are risk-averse in the realm of gains and risk-seeking in the realm of losses. Unfortunately, in corporate decision-making, both behaviors undermine and reduce enterprise value. Amos Tversky was a Stanford University professor of cognitive psychology and would play a significant role in my Stanford education. Daniel Kahneman wins the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2002 for his seminal work. Unfortunately, Amos Tversky passes away before then. While the ideas of smart machines and push-button factories had been bandied about since the 1950s, the interesting starting point for computer science and artificial intelligence is the year 1982. Japan and the US hold a joint conference on the fifth generation of neural networks, with this latest generation initiating the use of artificial intelligence. 4 years later, in 1986, David Rumelhart introduces backward propagation as a machine learning algorithm in a multi-layer network. Using pattern recognition and parallel distributed processing, learning in the multi-layer network is now bidirectional, a major breakthrough. It's 1987 and Rumelhart makes the move to Stanford University. The AI community on campus is very excited. I'm taking all the AI courses at that time as well, and I'm looking for a dissertation topic. I'm thinking about automation of corporate decision-making in some way. I walk into my thesis advisor's office, Ron Howard, and I tell him my thinking on that. And he says, Brian, you can't automate decision framing. That is personal preferences, the choices involved, the information that's needed. He said, that's a science, but there's an art to that as well. So I end up taking ideas out of the Rumelhart course and applying what I'm learning from Amos Tversky, and end up with a bidirectional probabilistic assessment. So this is my first foray into taking a descriptive theory thinking about how to mitigate cognitive biases and errors in thinking, and putting that into a normative probability assessment process. In the meantime, Bob Charette is pioneering practices of enterprise and project risk management. He establishes Atabi as a risk management consultancy in 1986. In 1989 and 1990, he publishes two seminal risk management books, Software Engineering Risk Analysis and Management, and Application Strategies for Risk Analysis. Hughes Aircraft Company was paying for my Stanford education, and the deal was, during the academic year, you're up on the Stanford campus, and in the summers, I'd come back home to Southern California and work at Hughes Aircraft. Bob Charette was invited out to speak or give a course on risk management, and I took it because I was working in risk management for Hughes at that time too. And we immediately hit it off. It's clear that we have similar thoughts and ideas about where to take things. We promised that we'd do something together at some point, didn't know what that was, left it at that, but we were in communication thereafter, and later Bob will be the co-founder of Decision Empowerment Institute. Bob goes on to develop the management of risk guidelines for the UK government and then later chairs the development of risk management standards for the IEEE, IEC, and ISO. He became an elected member of IEEE's Computer Society's Elite Golden Core. The next artificial intelligence milestone comes in 1997. IBM's Deep Blue beats world chess champion Garry Kasparov. Deep Blue has specialized hardware for the specialized problem of playing chess. It does so by brute force parallel processing. I've long since graduated from Stanford University and have been working at Strategic Decisions Group, SDG. My dissertation thesis advisor at Stanford was Ron Howard. In 1964, he was a founder of the normative theory of decision-making he called decision analysis. He was also a co-founder and founding chairman of Strategic Decisions Group. Whereas Kahneman and Tversky contributed to a descriptive theory of decision-making, that is, how we actually think about and make decisions, including the mental heuristics we use and the resulting cognitive biases and errors that degrade the quality of the decisions we make, Ron Howard and his students are contributing to a normative prescriptive theory of decision-making, how we should make decisions using probabilities and often numerical models. That is, how to make a high-quality decision, a prescriptive theory. To do so, you must first start with what the definition of a decision is. A decision is an allocation of resources that is often only revocable at some cost. In the early to mid-1990s, we developed at SDG an R&D portfolio analysis, how to evaluate a portfolio of R&D projects and manage those projects. And this is a big hit. This is a revolutionary new approach to evaluating R&D. Today, every pharma company of any size or biotech company uses this approach today. So this was a big deal, very exciting development. In 1997, Tom Keelan of SDG and Paul Sharp published this breakthrough in Harvard Business Review. With the growing success of standardizing how to evaluate and manage an R&D portfolio, the decision analysis community poses a question. Is there a generalized theory of portfolio decision-making that applies to all corporate decisions and industries? For the next several years, I'm applying a similar approach to the R&D portfolio solution to a variety of portfolios. A portfolio of risks, a portfolio of capital projects, a portfolio of EBITDA improvement projects used to improve the valuation of a company to be sold in a couple of years, a portfolio of Six Sigma projects, and many others. In May of 2005, I was invited to Bristol-Myers Squibb in Lawrence Township in New Jersey. Bristol-Myers Squibb was in search of a method to rationalize their product portfolio at the time. They felt they had too many unprofitable products and product extensions and wanted to go through that portfolio and thin it out. And this is a thorny problem. It's just not a profitability issue. There's manufacturing network impacts involved, changes overhead structures. It's a thorny problem. So they need a smart way to go about doing that. So I was out to visit them to propose a method to do that. I arrived the day before. It's a beautiful spring day. And I decided to take a walk in the early evening on the Princeton campus. I always enjoy walks on campuses. And on campus, I decided to go and visit Fine Hall. That's where John Nash is. It's somebody that I studied a lot about. His work showed up in my education in many ways, Nash equilibrium. I remember walking over to Fine Hall, the mathematics department, and looking on the kiosk downstairs, and there was his name, John Nash. He was up on the, 8th or 9th floor. It was high up in the building. Take the elevator up. The building's empty. There's nobody around. I think it's about 6:30 in the evening. And I just walked over, stood outside his office, shook his doorknob a little bit, rubbed the door. Just for a moment stood there, realizing there was this great mind that comes into that office and sits on the other side of that door. Went to dinner later on, and the next day I had the meeting, gave my pitch, got back to Newark Airport for a flight to LA. It's about a 6-hour flight. Got upgraded, which was nice. I got to sit up in a big seat, get a glass of wine, had my yellow legal notebook pad. And between Newark and LA, I wrote down all the mathematics of this generalized theory. It just all came together in those hours on the flight. Wrote the mathematics down and the proofs of the generalized theory. I get off the plane in Los Angeles, and I'm really just nervous. I think this is it. I think I figured out the generalized theory. The essence is that every decision in your personal or professional life consists of one or a combination of problems, risks, and opportunities. That's P for problems, R for risks, and O for opportunities, or PRO. A good chemistry metaphor is to think of decisions as molecules. At the atomic level, any decision is one or a combination of problems, risks, and opportunities. I could easily and efficiently reproduce all my previous portfolio models with one standard all-purpose model. As importantly, I've also created a normative prescriptive decision analytic approach that integrates the critical aspects of how we think about decision making, leveraging our innate strengths and minimizing our cognitive biases and errors. We spent the next 18 months building and testing a desktop prototype of a software application we call Pro Prospector, in homage to Kahneman's and Tversky's prospect theory. In 2006, I give a call to Bob Charette. And, I want to tell him, Bob, I've got something super interesting. We should talk about this. And it turns out, independently, Bob's been working on a qualitative pro-like approach for governmental applications. We established Decision Empowerment Institute in 2007. Our name says it all. Our mission is to empower people to become better decision makers, not just executives and managers, but everyone, including parents and children. The knowledge and skills of good decision making are fundamental to everything we do and impact what we achieve in our personal and professional lives. Unfortunately, our educational systems fall short in providing this foundational skill set. This is a gap in education and organizations today that we are trying to fill. To truly empower individuals to become better decision makers requires providing them knowledge and skills about decision making, and for corporations, providing efficient, understandable, and natural to use methods and tools. We're an institute of two practicing academics with lofty aspirations. Revolutionize corporate decision making with Nobel Prize-worthy methods and analytics that can be up and running in less than a week and at a very low cost. We call this pro-enterprise management, efficient, high-quality decision-making throughout the enterprise, transformative, enterprise-wide change to become a pro-enterprise. We built a highly secure cloud web-based version of Pro Prospector. For the next several years, we slowly and methodically develop and refine our methods and software, with corporations being our laboratory. We're discovering the nuances of the applications of our theory and methods through use. Each client provides a learning opportunity for improvement. We're not building a business, we're building a revolutionary new standard of decision making. Through use cases, we build a library of reusable decision framing templates and then often generalize those to create decision class templates. Just as Ron Howard told me in 1987, we need to use our skills, knowledge, and thinking to create decision frames, We can't automate decision framing. The next artificial intelligence milestone comes in 2011. IBM's Watson beats two of Jeopardy's greatest champions, Ken Jennings and Brad Rutter. The breakthrough is Watson can answer questions posed in natural language. In the same year, we won the Risk Innovator of the Year award from Risk and Insurance magazine for Pro Enterprise Management. Word is getting out on what we have and what we can do. I got a call from Dan Kane of SAS Institute. He invites Bob and I out to SAS headquarters in Cary, North Carolina to discuss our methods and software. Once a year, SAS has a big program in Cary for their clients, and we're invited to that as well. The keynote speaker for the program is famed Clayton Christensen of Harvard University. Christensen gives this incredible and inspiring talk and hands out signed copies of his most recent book, How Will You Measure Your Life? The next day, I flew home. During the flight home, I read Christensen's book. He describes a framework showing how all corporate decisions must flow through the resource allocation process, whether you are creating a new strategy or plan or reacting to what is happening with respect to your strategy or plan. What you decide to do only becomes actionable after resources are allocated to it. Plain and simple, the definition of a decision. This creates a natural tension between the act of creating new strategies and plans versus what he and others call emergent strategy. In his words, from How Will You Measure Your Life, and forgive me, Clayton, for my highlighted additions, the unanticipated problems and opportunities and risks then essentially fight for the attention of capital and hearts of the management and employees. The company has to decide whether to stick with the original plan, modify it, or even replace it altogether with one of the alternatives that arises. The decision sometimes is an explicit decision. Often, however, a modified strategy coalesces from myriad day-to-day decisions to pursue unanticipated opportunities and resolve unanticipated problems and mitigate emerging risks. When strategy forms in this way, it is known as emergent strategy. Christensen's framework links all corporate decision-making through the resource allocation process, establishing two corporate resource allocation dilemmas. By the time I get off the plane in Los Angeles, I'm completely distraught. Clayton Christensen has beat us to the punch. He solved this. How are we going to compete with Clayton Christensen? I call up Bob and tell him the bad news. And we decide, let's try to search out what the details are of what he has on this approach. And so we're digging into this, and there aren't any details. It's an idea, it's a concept. Just like Michael Hammer's re-engineering article in 1990, it lays out the approach, how to think about that, but no details on what to do. We're back in business. We adopt and modify Christensen's framework, which applies across all corporate decision-making. The core responsibility of every executive and manager is to manage their pro-portfolio, manage their ever-changing portfolio of problems, risks, and opportunities. Their pro-portfolios inform corporate planning, and their pro-portfolio is what must be managed during execution. This establishes the two dilemmas of corporate resource allocation. The first corporate resource allocation dilemma we call the corporate planning dilemma. Which activities should be included based on best enterprise value? Best value accounting for strategic or operational objectives, reputation, customer value, sustainability, or whatever the enterprise deems valuable. Importantly, it should consider the current pro-portfolio, the problems, risks, and opportunities the enterprise faces. The second corporate resource allocation dilemma occurs during plan execution which we call the Pro Dilemma. Which problems, risks, and opportunities should be pursued at this point in time based on creating or protecting the most enterprise value? Resolving the two dilemmas is the yin and yang of corporate resource allocation. Resolving either one of the dilemmas and not the other undermines the potential value creation and protection of the enterprise. The bad news is we have a proven solution for the second dilemma, but not the first. So we continue refining and developing our prospector software and decision templates that are applicable to the second dilemma. And now we begin our quest to develop an efficient solution for the first dilemma, the corporate resource allocation dilemma we call the corporate planning dilemma. In 2015, OpenAI is founded with Sam Altman and Elon Musk as co-chairs. With $1 billion in funding and an all-star software team, they begin working on an application that will set the record for fastest growing user base, hitting 100 million users in just 2 months after launch. Meta's rival to Twitter, Threads, will soon thereafter eclipse this record. In 2018, there are 2 major milestones. OpenAI introduces their first generative AI model, GPT-1. GPT-1 is a generalized pre-trained transformer. It's a large language model trained on large amounts of text data. This marks a next major milestone in natural language processing. In the same year, we published Problem, Risk, and Opportunity Enterprise Management. By now, we have many examples across a wide variety of industries to share. The book details the integration of descriptive and normative decision theories using conversational, narrative-based analytics, but it only solves the pro dilemma, not the corporate planning dilemma. On the heels of GPT-1 comes GPT-2 in 2019. GPT-2 is trained on a book corpus dataset of over 7,000 books and a dataset of over 8 million web pages. In 2020, OpenAI introduces ChatGPT-3. This is a natural language processing game changer, performing an impressive range of tasks, including language translation, text summarization, question answering, and creative writing. Most importantly to our story, AI has finally developed a conversational, narrative-based interface enabling the first opportunity for our conversational, narrative-based analytics to be integrated with a decision-informing AI interface. The strategic objectives of a corporation are more than making money. There are non-financial objectives and indirectly financial objectives. Things like market placement, innovation, customer value, sustainability, community involvement, reputation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and many others. The first corporate resource allocation dilemma, inspired by Clayton Christensen, is the corporate planning dilemma. Which activities should be included in a strategy or plan based on best enterprise value? Best value must include financial and non-financial value. That's a multivariate optimization problem, which is notoriously difficult, especially when it comes to rigorously capturing executives' preferences across the many value measures. Many textbook solutions exist, but none leverage the critical descriptive decision-making concerns of how to leverage our innate strengths in thinking while mitigating our cognitive biases and noise that undermine the quality of the analytical results. It took a few years to solve this thorny problem, but in 2021, we developed the mathematics of the solution and built a prototype of what we call Pro Planner. Pro Planner has been a great success and has many applications of it used in corporations today. ChatGPT-4 is released in 2023. ChatGPT-4 can understand context better and is better suited to respond to prompts that require more complex and deeper understanding. ChatGPT-5 is expected to be released in 2024. It's 2023. The Decision Empowerment Institute has a suite of technologies that resolves both of the corporate resource allocation dilemmas. That spans the entirety of corporate decision-making. Key to our technology is that it is conversational and narrative-based, unlike any other decision analytic, making it natural and easy to use. The artificial intelligence community has exploded with generative AI solutions that are compelling because they too now are conversational and narrative-based. They engage us in an easy-to-use and natural way. Integrating pro analytics with generative AI models is a no-brainer. High-quality, consistent decision-making throughout the enterprise, a truly pro-enterprise, is now possible through the integration of pro analytics with generative AI models. Ron Howard's statement to me in 1987 remains true in 2023. You can't automate decision framing. Pro analytics provides the decision frames that generative AI models can help inform, all done naturally through conversation and narratives. The question is, who will pursue this opportunity with us to leapfrog the competition in building the ultimate generative AI capability? Decision-making with pro analytics. An enterprise software company? A major management consultancy? A generative AI technology investor? Or a generative AI technology firm? Or is it you and your organization? Thank you for watching Bob's and my story about our pursuit to revolutionize corporate decision-making, the Decision Empowerment Institute story.